So we're going to talk about how to get more traffic by optimizing your content for search. All of these tips will apply to blog posts, static pages, anything online. And I'm Christy Kellogg. I'm the social media editor at an international digital marketing agency called Inc. So what is SEO? SEO is the process of reverse engineering a search engine algorithm at a content level. It's making sure a search engine can easily understand what a page, article, or blog is about. So we're all on the same page with what we're doing. So content has all these parts. It's not as simple as just, oh, I'm going to write something. We have to brainstorm, we have to write, we have to do keyword research, we have to optimize the content, the metadata, the images, the social tags, like for when it's going to go out, and we have to promote immediately, and we have to schedule promotion. So all of these things are what goes into a piece of content. I think when you publish something, there should be as much time, in theory, promoting it socially as you spend actually creating the thing, because you want people to find what you made. And, you know, sometimes the keyword research drives the topic, sometimes the brainstorming drives the content, but it's all very important. So we're going to talk about all these key pieces of the puzzle. So, brainstorming and keyword research. So, one way to brainstorm is to identify content. So that means what is on your website that's missing, and that would depend on your industry. So if you're like our company and you're doing digital marketing and you're trying to answer questions with blog posts, what questions do people have that you haven't answered? You can also look to competitors to find out, well, what do they have on their site that's helping people that I should have too? And you can always get an idea and make it better. Other things you can write about are capitalizing on events and news. Again, if you're in the digital marketing industry, writing about something like an algorithm update, like Penguin or Panda, those are things that you can talk about. Or like when Twitter comes out and says, oh, we're not going to count an @sign as a character anymore with the person's handle. You can write about things like this. Also, you can answer questions and analyze the competition, which we just talked about. So those are some ways to like get ideas for like, what the heck am I even going to write about on my site? So when you're thinking about keywords, these are two tools you can use. Who has used the Google AdWords Keyword Planner? Okay, so for those of you watching at home, like half the room raised their hand. So this is a free tool. It's part of AdWords, but you can go in and use it for organic search. So let's say, I'm going to get to some specific examples of this later, but I might be referring to something in one way, and someone else is referring it in another way, and this has 100,000 searches, but how I was thinking of it has 50. So which term do I want to use? Like I obviously want to make sure I am using the right terms, and this can also help you like, okay, so an article might be SEO for real estate. Well, what questions are people doing about that? Are they calling it, just how are they asking that question? So you can write down all the different ways you can think of that question and put it in the keyword planner and find the one with the most search volume. And then Keyword Tool IO is a great tool. So say I have like a little phrase, let's say it's real estate SEO again. I have like no idea, let's pretend, like what people are saying with that. If I put real estate SEO in Keyword Tool IO, it's going to give me long tail queries, questions, queries with 3, 4, 5 words that are going to help me then be like, oh, okay, here's 10 questions people are asking. And that comes from, you know, when you do a Google search and it gives you the automatic like, oh, are you trying to ask this? That's where that data is pulled from for this. And then you can go and get the search volume, and then you can make an educated decision on which question you're going to answer. So, and it's always better to do a long tail phrase than a short phrase, because let's face it, like, do you really want to rank #1 for something like cars? Or do you want to rank #1 for something like Ford model, buy it in LA? Like, this is probably the one that's going to get a conversion as opposed to cars, where you might get a movie, you could be anything. Okay, so does anybody have any questions so far? We're all good. Okay. So Now about the actual writing of the piece. So it's really critical to know your audience. Like, who are you talking to? That's going to really affect your tone. If you're BuzzFeed, you're going to talk very differently than if you're the LA Times. So these are just like key writing tips. When you know your audience, it's going to inform the subject, the tone, and the reading level. Some fun facts. Does anybody know what news, like any news article you read, what reading level it's supposed to be at?
3rd grade.
Okay, someone said 3rd grade. Anybody else got a guess? 10th? Okay, somewhere in the middle, it's 8th grade. That's what the news is supposed to be, the level it's supposed to be written at. So, keeping that in mind, the internet kind of works like that too. Like if you're writing a blog post, you don't want to sound like you're in academia. You want to sound like that level. So there's some ways to make sure you're writing at the right level. There's something called the Fleisch-Kincaid system, and that looks at any content and tells you what level it's written at. Our SEO tools at our company, which we have, can analyze any of your content and tell you what level it's at. There's also a plugin called Yoast. Yoast is a tool I mentioned later that tells you what reading level you're writing at. So, okay. Enough about that. In every piece of content, know the goal of the content and include a call to action. So that means, let's go back to the real estate SEO example. I'm not just going to write about 7 tips to like improve your real estate SEO. I'm going to have a call out somewhere, like a graphic that's like, hey, we're here to help you with your SEO. We've worked with this many real estate agents. Call us today for like blah, blah, blah. So just don't just write to, you know, help the world. Like, we do want to help the world with our content, but also bring it back to your like business goals. Like how is this gonna make us money and get us clients or whatever it is you're doing. So always include a call to action. Maybe it's not call us. Maybe it's, hey, we wrote a guide on this related thing. Stay on our site. I mean, don't say stay on our site, but come read this here because you don't want them to bounce. Okay, so next point. Write quality content. Spammy or duplicated content, what Google defines as quote, thin content with little or no added value, will harm you. So I don't know how familiar all of you are with like updates and penalties or whatever, but let's say I have a site and I write a page and I have like 5 locations and I'm trying to rank for each of those locations, like LA, San Diego, whatever they are, and I write a blurb about our city or our services in such and such city, and then I put the same content here and just take out LA and put San Diego, and here I put Orange County and whatever. That is not okay. Like if it were like a 100-word thing and it was like just a little thing at the bottom, that would be different, but I'm talking about like a page, like 500 words of like the same content on each of those. That is duplicated content. Google doesn't like it. No, like none of them are gonna rank. If I especially am putting it on different sites, that is even worse. So that's really bad. You always want to have original quality content. So that means being useful, because Google wants people to have a good experience, as I'm sure you do when people come to your site. Okay, so tools for writing. Your brain, yay! Okay. And so you should have a style. That's really helpful. Lots of brands have style guides, and if you don't have a style guide, you can always refer to the AP, that's the Associated Press. You can have an online subscription, and it just keeps everything clean, especially if you're producing a lot of content. You want it to like be all the same. And the Purdue Online Writing Lab, this has been one of my favorite sites since graduate school. It has AP, MLA, and APA styles. So I don't know if you're in one of those fields and you need a different style guide, that's a really great resource.
Question
yes.
for you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
but so do you write your article and then throw it into one of these and then it converts it, or
no.
you're just supposed to learn from?
Yeah, no, these are like resources. For example, I don't know. There's always, okay, of the writers at our agency, oh my gosh, we get so excited when there's like a question because like basically we kind of know everything about writing. So if there's ever like, wait, how was this word in this particular weird case supposed to be used? We get so excited and then like go to the AP style book. And then it's usually such a weird thing that we have to like tweet to the AP and be like, hey, how would you handle this? I'm trying to think of like an example. I know we have one recently. But this isn't helpful because I can't remember, but we get really excited when we have to argue about an AP thing.
What about Oxford comma?
I hate it. I hate it so much. Like, okay, and the AP's position on the, okay, wait, who knows what the Oxford comma is?
The worst.
Okay.
I disagree completely.
Okay, well, let's have it now. Okay. So, actually, this was like an argument in the writer's room recently. Okay, so here's the thing. If you don't know what an Oxford comma is, that's when I have a sentence and at the end, when there's, okay, so I went to the Digital Growth Summit and I went into Malibu room, I don't know what these rooms are called, and the Zuma room and the Orange room. If I put a comma after and the Orange room, that is an Oxford comma. It wasn't necessary, and dare I say, it was a little pretentious. So like, the only reason I think that an Oxford comma should exist, and this is what the AP would stand by, is for clarity. So that means if I said, this is hard to think of examples like off the top of your head. If I ate oranges, apples, prunes, but this is a terrible example. It's when one of these clauses at the end has an and, so I don't know if it's this and this, or this was one entry and then it ended with and this. Does that make sense? I have no idea. Okay, maybe it did. Okay, so the AP would say that the only time an Oxford comma is acceptable is for clarity. But please, counter-argue.
I think it offers more clarity actually, because it does define this, and it also puts an actual like space in your brain, like a breath almost, when you're listing out.
And it keeps consistency.
And
if it establishes clarity in some places and not others, you should do it the same way all the time, so there should always be a comma.
I love that you guys are thinking about it, but that's exactly what the point of a style guide is, to make these decisions for your brand, because the truth is you're not writing articles, you're not the LA Times, so you don't have to go by the AP. So if you decide Oxford comma it is, then you stick with the Oxford comma and make sure everybo's writing with the Oxford comma, and I respect your decision to use that inferior piece of punctuation. I'm just teasing. Okay, so, well, that was a tangent. Okay, yeah, but any more questions at this point?
No, I just find it interesting because I know how I write, and the problem is I write over in 8th grade, so it'd be hard for me to kind of dumb down myself to a 8th grade level. So that's where I would,
I don't think it's about dumbing it down, but it's okay. So that Fleisch-Kincaid system, I think it's basing the level on the number of syllables in the words. So I mean, there is a writer who every time I get their article and I'm gonna edit it, they get a little above and beyond, and it sounds like grad school, right?
Right.
And the thing is, it's gonna turn people off, and that goes back to knowing your audience. Like this is my understanding of most people online. They want the facts, they want them now, they have a 1.3-second attention span. That's like a real statistic. So you've got to get to the point. Like, you don't have the time to indulge in like, I'm gonna use some big words and be smart. But if you were, that was really squeaky, I'm sorry. If you were, I don't know, maybe the rules are different if you're like writing a blog for a college and people are expecting to hear this kind of lofty whatever, then maybe they're going to stick with it. So there are places where you certainly could be writing at a higher than 8th grade reading level. And if you try out the SEO toolset, which you can find on bruceclay.com, you can put, so I can put in my site and my competitors' sites, and this tool will tell me, oh, all of these sites are writing at a 11th grade reading level. That means that I should be writing at an 11th grade reading level as well. So it's really based on your competition, and there's a bell curve of how people search. So it's it's all compared to the person who's doing the best. You want to be right in there with them. So maybe for you in your industry, that does turn out to be the case. You have a question?
Yes, it was similar to that, but separate question. In terms of duplicate content, like if I publish something on a client's blog and then also want to make it an article on LinkedIn, what's the threshold for, like, I've been changing the title, but is there some sort of threshold that says, like, if you change a certain number of, like, the ratio, change a certain number of words, then you're cool by Google standards? Or
So LinkedIn is like a special situation. In this case, it's functioning as like a social platform, and we've like tested it. You can put the article verbatim on a LinkedIn article, so you're good to go. But then I would always have at the bottom, this was originally published on blog.
yeah.
So good question.
Okay, what about in another website? Like exactly the same? No. In
So-
directory listing, for example, I just took a page on my website and then put the same description on a directory listing site. Will it matter? Will it be seen too?
We wouldn't advise that because Google's gonna have to pick which one is right.
Okay.
And what if they give
I
that
don't want a
traffic?
directory. Okay, right.
Yeah, so I wouldn't do that. You should
Okay.
hire a writer
Yeah.
to make individual descriptions.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, shall we move on or? Okay. Okay, here's some do's and don'ts about writing. There's too much text on this slide. Okay, so do write original, unique text. Do use keywords in a way that read naturally. But yes, okay. Write for users. So what does that mean? Okay, going back to like the SEO tool set, that means if I'm analyzing my page and all these other pages, how do I know how many keywords to use, right? We know first off that Google has become more sophisticated than ever at understanding synonyms, so like it's a different atmosphere than it was before. But if my competitor is using that's ranking number 1 is using the keyword 5 times, and this close competitor is using it 7 times, and I'm using it 15 times, I'm using it way too much. I want to be in that like average, situation. But don't ever like just try to force it in an unnatural way because that's gross. Okay. Also, Google won't like it. Write for the way people read online with shorter sentences and paragraphs. We just touched on that. In school, I think we were probably taught that a paragraph has 5 sentences. That's just not true. I mean, a paragraph can have 1 sentence, and online, usually we need to be writing in shorter paragraphs, which is why, people can be great writers, and they can have done great in school, but that's why it's valuable to hire a content writer that knows about SEO and these things and is, focusing on digital marketing, because how you write for a traditional newspaper is different than how you write for BuzzFeed, is different than how you write for a snarky blog. So you want someone who's gonna understand how to do it, and who better than a professional. Okay, so but also you can learn yourself. I'm not trying to dissuade anyone from trying to do a good job. So bulleted and numbered lists are also really advantageous. We find that people like those a lot. Include images, embedded videos, and other engagement objects. Other engagement objects might be like, embedding a tweet or things like that. Just think how to make it interactive and break up the text so it's not a bunch of text on a page, because people also don't like that. Don't overuse keywords. We talked about that. Don't try to optimize for keywords that are unrelated to the website's content. That's pretty obvious. Don't duplicate content pages. Don't hide text from users that shows to search engines. These are like spam tactics. I'm pretty sure nobody would be doing this anymore, but we just still want to. Does anybody know about this? That people used to put text? Okay, everybody is nodding. Okay, great. And don't try to deceive search engines in any way. Hashtag spam. They will catch you, they will find you, they will harm you, they will penalize you. The damage will be irreparable. Just don't do it. Invest your time in doing a good job. Okay.
Excuse. For the blog, how much is the minimum words? Like, is it 300 enough to make it like a good content?
We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
So that's
Can't
a great
wait.
question. Okay. So, actually, is it on the slide? It is.
Great. There you go.
So how much content is enough for a keyword?
Yeah.
Each page needs enough original text to enough original text to compete. The right amount will depend on what's normal for that keyword. If all the top ranking pages for a certain keyword have 1,000 words, then you'll also need 1,000 words of text. So this comes into like doing the comparison of the other pages. Again, I'm going to say SEO toolset because you can just use this tool to do it. And you might find that your competitors are only writing 300 words, and then that's fine. So competition aside, here are some general SEO recommendations for page length. Research pages, 500 to 600 words. E-commerce pages, 300 words. Shopping pages tend to have a lot of product pictures. I'm not sure why I put that there. And blog posts, 200 minimum words per post. That's really low. Like on our Bruce Clay blog, I would say all of our articles have at least 500 words. But there's a client that's a tourism client that their blog posts can have only 300 words. So it depends. Questions at this point? Yes?
Yeah, interesting situation where you have two established competitors who say in 1,000 words something that can be said in really 300 words. How do you compete with them? Is it because do you really have to write also in 1,000 words to be ranked favorably by Google? Or can you attract more readers by saying it in 300 at least as it can be said?
That's a great question. So for people who are watching, we were just asked if you have two competitors and they each are writing 1,000 words, what happens if you can write the same thing in 300 words and do it just as well? What do you do? So I have a counter question. Are these competitors ranking?
Yes, they're ranking well, they're very established, they've been early entrants in the industry, so they've been there for a very long time.
Okay, so Google is rewarding them for what they're doing, and Google sees that as natural. So for you to play, you would need to be doing the 1,000 words too.
Okay.
And if it's something, I want to talk about this. It's so fun. Okay, so if it's something that can be answered in 300 words, like, do you have an example of a specific thing we could talk about?
It's blogs about cord cutting, how to cut cords and go away from cable TV, etc.
Okay.
So there are these two companies, thecablebill.com and the other one, cordcutters.com, and they write really lengthy, old-fashioned style articles that I can never read fully. But they've been there so long, they were the first. They rank very well, they have a very big crowd. And I look at it and I say, is there a competitive strategy where you trim this, you make it really palatable to people who have only 3 minutes?
Sure.
To get the same content, it's very possible, but do I stand a chance with Google?
I think you can do both. Is like a query, for example, how to cut a cord?
Yeah, it's like, for example, today is going to be how to watch Major League Baseball without cable, Tomorrow, how to watch the presidential debate without cable. So they're going to say it in 1,000 words, but it can really be said in 300.
So something that you could be competing for that's even maybe better than the #1 spot on Google. Does anybody know? Want to have a guess? Okay, a featured snippet. Who knows what a featured snippet is? Okay, some people are nodding. Okay, so a featured snippet is when I do a search. Let's say it's the things you're talking about. How do I watch cable for free at this baseball game? That's not what they would. How do I watch the game for free? Whatever. Okay. Whatever. If you know how sometimes you do a search and you get an answer box at the top? That's a featured snippet. So that can appear in a variety of ways. It can be a bulleted list. It can be a video. It can be the answer to the question. It can be a picture. There's like 7 different ways it can populate. We have seen, for example, like 70% more traffic thanks to a featured snippet. So if you can earn a featured snippet, that's great. So next question, how do you earn a featured snippet? There are some ways. There's an article on this on the Bruce Clay blog. If you go to us and put in featured snippets. There are strategies. One of the best ways is to put that question, how do I watch the game for free? Put it as an H1 or an H2.
Right.
And then answer it in a succinct way. So there's your short, under 300-word answer. Now I've put it at the top. Maybe it's a bulleted list. We also know that Google tends to like those lists in the featured snippet. So I've I've given it a chance to get in the featured snippet. I've also given someone who only has the 1 minute to read my page, there's their answer super fast. Now, if you want to compete with those other two guys though that had the 1,000 words, now maybe I put more, or I put related, or I, you know, whatever. I beef it up in a useful way, but I still got to the point at the top. Another thing that I'd like to mention about featured snippets at this point is voice search is becoming more and more important. By 2017, more than half of searches will be on voice search. This is because of our phones, it's because of smart home systems. So how do you win on search when there are not 10 blue links and there's just someone talking to you? How do you get Google to give that person who's searching for where should I have Mexican food for lunch, how do I get my restaurant in there, right? A featured snippet is another way to do that, because if you're asking a long tail query to a smart home system or your voice search, Google will say, well, according to so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. So now you got your brand name in there and you got the answer. So that's where we're going. It might be that we're playing for featured snippets and not spots in the search eventually. So, questions at this point?
So things are changing in other words.
Things are always changing.
Yeah.
The Google algorithm changes like every single day in tiny little ways, and then in major ways with updates also. So it's never the same. It's never the same. What worked last year will not work next
So
year.
you could be a featured snippet today, and then in 2 days, it's gone.
Yeah, you can lose them too.
Right.
That's another thing. And they're very hard to get. And then if you get one, they can go away. And you can steal one from someone else. Like if you come and answer it better, you might get the reward. You also can edit a featured snippet. So if I see that Google is pulling this content, and then I go and I change it a little bit, we've seen in 7 seconds Google update what I updated. But what if I update it and then it's somehow not more valuable? So you have to be really careful. And then that's all. It's a fun game.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we keep, oh, but also, when I say that it changes all the time, the great thing about what we're learning today, these are like the tenets and the pillars, like that you can count on yesterday and tomorrow. Okay, headings. Include your primary keyword in each one. Let's pause for a second. You can have a primary keyword or keyword phrase, and then you can have your secondary supporting keyword phrases. Yes, and keyword is misleading because it doesn't have to be one word, it can be the phrase, right? So make sure, does everyone know what I'm talking about when I say in each one?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So make sure it's in your H1. Make sure it appears in the first 200 words, the body copy. That counts most heavily for search engines and for users. Because like you mentioned, you know, if they only have a minute to read, we want to make sure they know that they're getting what they want in the beginning so they don't bounce. Body text include keywords occasionally and evenly. Clarifying words. Clarifying words include word stemming variations, so that's right, writing, writes, writer, synonyms, and closely associated words that help clarify the keyword's context and meaning. This is pretty much just about writing naturally. Like if I'm writing unnaturally and trying to stuff a keyword in, then I'm going to say the same weird phrase in the same, you know, tense over and over again. So Google expects to see different tenses in stemming words. Links. Link to relevant pages in your own site using keyword-rich anchor text when appropriate for users. So that means if I'm writing a social media article, at some point I'm going to want to say, you want to learn more about social media, something like that, then I'm going to link to our social media silo with the word social media. And this builds up the link equity towards that. So that's that.
Wait.
Oh, yes? Oh, you're typing. Okay. Any questions at this point? Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
On links, of course you want to link to your own pages, but you can really add value to the content if you link outwardly.
Sure.
Does that work against you? But I could see it working for you by just making it a better piece of content without having to, you know, get to really long. If you want to link to other concepts, and what's your thought there on outbound links?
I think that if it makes sense for the user, you should definitely include them because the most important thing is to be useful. However, okay, we want to be natural. So let's pretend for some reason I need to link to something that doesn't make sense with my site, or maybe I just don't trust it. I can put a no follow tag on the link, which will let the user go, but it will let the search engine know that like, don't count this as any sort of link thing. Does everybody know what a no follow tag is? That's, okay, so if in the HTML you would have href, this is weird to think and not type, equals colon with the link, then you have like another little part that says rel equals quote no follow. It's just code. Yeah, so good question. We don't, on our blog, it's set up to not include, they're all no follow unless we put them on a whitelist. So that's just how we handle it. Okay, your metadata. So your title tag is
One quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, one follow-up question on
Sure.
that. Is there such a thing as link stuffing, like keyword stuffing? Can you like put too many in and
No.
like backlinks?
No, but like also something to think about, if I've put 10 links in an article and it's 500 words, that's a lot. Like, as a user, am I going to go to all of those? No. So you kind of want to make sure you're only linking to like the most important things. And also, is it worth it to send them off the site? Like, if it's your own site, it's one thing. So if it's really useful that they go see this thing on somewhere else, okay. But remember, you're sending them away.
I'm talking about your own site, linking to other content or parts of your own site if you're just jamming a bunch of links in there to try and build up your
Got it.
backlinks.
Well, you're dividing the link equity every time you do that, so I would recommend always linking to the landing page, and this has to do with siloing, which is like a whole different SEO concept that you can, we have like a very, I was going to say long, but that's not the right word. We have a very in-depth tutorial on our site that covers every like SEO thing. So if you want to learn more about siloing, which is how you actually like divide your site and like you'll make it work, we have that resource for free on our site. So that would be in there.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I was going to say this. I guess I wasn't. Okay. Okay. The title tag is the most important tag and almost always shows up as the big blue link in SERPs. As a guideline, the link should be 6 to 12 words, not including stock words such as a, of, and, for, etc. Okay, this actually was updated recently. I think it's 18 words now, but that's not helpful. It's 6 to 12. Okay, so, and if we're gonna get super nerdy, this is actually counted by pixels, but like how are we gonna know how many pixels our characters are taking up? Like that's a whole other thing. So 6 to 12 is really a good metric still. So why is this important? This is when we do a search. I search for handbags and there's an entry and it's what's gonna come up is the title, right? Like it's gonna make the difference of whether I click on it or not. So I really want the keyword in there. That's still what we're talking about, and only once, not more than once. And I want to think about what it's gonna look like. Maybe I put an emoji in. Maybe I think people will click more if I do that. Meta description. Accurately describe the page content and motivate searchers to click. To be safe, before Google's cutoff, place keywords within the first 160 characters, including spaces. Don't use any keyword more than twice. So this is also important because when you put in like social sharing and people are sharing it, if you haven't specified a different description, it's the meta description that's going to come up. Like, so if I share an article on Facebook, it's pulling the title tag in the meta description. I'm sure you've seen some articles, you go to share them and it says no title, no description. Yeah. That's because this wasn't put there, and there's really no excuse. Like, this is a key part of SEO. It's a key part of planning your social sharing. And there are plugins that can help you with this. Again, I'm going to talk about this one later. Yoast is a WordPress plugin, so you can. Oh, and it's cool because you can see. It will give you like a score, like did you include your keyword in your meta description? Did you include it in the first part of the body copy? So like if you're new to these things, it can be very useful. Questions at this point?
What about the meta keywords? Are they still being used, or are they still useful?
They can't hurt you.
Okay, because in Yoast you still have to encode the meta keywords, but sometimes I don't see it being done anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people don't
Yes.
do it, but it can't hurt you. And the thing is, sometimes Google takes things away, right? Like we had Google authorship for a while,
Yes.
and it went away. But for a long time after, people still were including the author tags because
It
when
might go
Google
back.
changes their mind, like it's not hurting you. So if it's not hurting you, there's no harm
But
in doing it.
isn't that a takeaway for your competitors? What you indicate there your keywords, and they'll know what you're
Oh,
actually banking on,
They could find your keywords anyway.
but still put it.
Yeah, like
Save
they could use the same way I'm talking about these tools. I could use them against my company. Like I don't need their meta keywords to know what they're.
But it's just so easy.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be concerned with
All
that.
right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, images also count when it comes to SEO. So if I include an image on a page or an article, whatever, I want to make the file name something that's, well, okay. I want to, yes, okay. So back to this SEO real estate article, which is actually an article I've written, which is why we're talking about it. I'm going to save the file name as SEO for real estate if that's the keyword phrase. Again, it's just helping. And if someone searches and then they go to the image tab, that's going to have a chance to be there. So you always want to put the keyword in the file name. There's something else, I guess I didn't put it on the slide, but I'm just going to talk about it. The Americans with Disabilities Act dictates that every image online should have something called an alt tag. And so that means, if someone has bad eyesight, if someone has bad eyesight and they're like scrolling over, they should be able to read a little thing that says what this image is about. This is a great place to put a keyword if the image actually is the keyword. So don't ever spam it, don't ever put SEO for real estate when it's a picture of a dog, right? But if I'm writing something about Google Home, and that's my keyword, and I include a picture of Google Home, you bet I'm gonna make the alt tag Google Home. So that's another place you can get your keyword in there. Don't use stock photos. Or don't use photos that look like stock photos at least. There's nothing more disgusting. Even I would take an Oxford comma over a stock photo. They are terrible. So there's so many options. You can take the pictures yourself. You can hire a photographer to take a bunch of pictures for you. You can go on Flickr and find pictures that are okay for commercial use. I've included stocksnap.io. That is a site where photographers can put all their pictures for public use. So you might be saying that's pretty much like a stock photo, but it's not really because it's like real. They're like good. They're not stock photography photos, even though they are. So, and they're like free to use and you don't have to attribute them, which is great. If you do go to Flickr and the photo necessitates attributing it, attribute it, because you could get sued if you don't. So be mindful. But anyway, and then you can buy a stock photo, again, if it doesn't look like a stock photo. And Canva is a great tool. This is where I make all of our graphics for our social promotions and the blog and everything. And they have an app, which is really awesome for just your personal Instagramming. You can buy pictures from them for $1 a picture, and they also tend to be they have a lot of photos that don't look like stock photos. So that's a great tool to, and this is awesome. Maybe I don't remember what the dimensions for a Facebook ad are. Well, then I just click on Facebook ad, I have my template, I'm ready to go. It's very simple. I highly recommend it. So you should make awesome images. Any questions about this so far? Okay, one more point. People like people. Studies always show people like to see people's faces. They like to see babies, that's a real thing, and they like to see pretty girls. So if you can include these things in your photos, you'll do better. And they like faces, they like to relate to what they're looking at. Okay. Optimize for social sharing. So create images with proper dimensions of the social network they'll be used on. So we've all seen someone shares a Facebook article and like the picture is like weird and it's not filling out the whole thing, that's because each of these platforms has a suggested dimension. So as a content creator, you should be creating the images with the proper dimensions. So again, if you use Canva, it's going to make it really easy for you to just get in there and do it. Do I have anything else to say about that? Yes. On Pinterest, vertical images perform better. Just fun fact. Okay. We've talked about these tools, Yoast and Canva. The Facebook debugger, that's a fun tool. Does anybody know what that would be for? Okay, so let's back up for a second. Whenever I push out like an article, right, I'm going to include a social image. So let's say on this SEO real estate article, the picture in the actual article is a happy family buying a house. Oh, great. That's perfect for the article. But when I share it on Twitter, I want it to have a text overlay that says, learn how to blah, blah. So that image is not going to appear on the blog post, but that's the image that I want to populate when someone shares it on Facebook. Because if I don't tell it what to share, Facebook is automatically going to take the picture and I want more control. So I'm going to put the picture I want in. The Yoast plugin will also allow you to do that. So the Facebook debugger goes like this. Let's say I change my mind and I've decided I'm going to use this picture instead. Or it was always picking up the picture in the article, but I've changed the picture in the article, so now it's just showing the wrong picture. I can put my URL in here and it will like crawl the page so that when people are sharing it on Facebook, then it'll have the right image. So that's the only way to fix that. So it's just a helpful little tool and it does it immediately. Yes?
Sorry, to go back to the stock photos, what's wrong with like using Shutterstock or something like that?
Do you like stock photos?
I think they're pretty.
Do you know they're a stock photo when you see them?
I can typically get like the nice landscapes and whatever.
They turn people off. I mean,
That's like a thing?
it's
People
a
don't
real
like
thing.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's very common. You get to see that in all websites and almost blogs, so it's
Well,
quite
yeah, I know
familiar.
those, like the road to nowhere.
And the faces.
But like if you're writing a blog post about, I don't know. I just
No, like what's like a good example, like for real?
So something financial related and you want to show like money growing, and it sounds cliche when I'm saying it out loud, but I guess the question would be what are the alternatives, and you gave some, so
Yeah.
because you don't want to like take a picture with your iPhone.
Something like money, that's like hard. Something like something about business. So what I think all of us can agree is we don't want to see like those people shaking hands with those
Right.
awful suits.
Yeah.
And for money, we don't want to see that same freaking pile of money or like
Or
the
the-
bills on the table or like the chart. Like, so what do you do? Because even then if you go to stocksnap.io, you're probably not even going to get anything that, no, you could get business things, but like, if you can't find a picture that's not a stock photo, I would suggest thinking of a whole new angle. Sometimes, especially like what I write most for, which is like tech and digital marketing, like it can be like a really it can be like a topic that does not lend itself to a picture at all. Like, how am I supposed to talk about this ridiculous like conceptual thing that doesn't even have a picture? Well, then you have to like, I wish I had like a good example off the top of my head. Okay, here's an example, and we're going to talk about this later, but I don't talk about the picture part. The Digital Marketing Conference Calendar. This is a calendar that I created that has like more than 140 events around the world of digital marketing conferences, because there was nothing like that online, and we'll talk about that later. What in the world picture am I supposed to make a calendar sound cool with, right? Like, am I going to have a picture of a calendar? Okay, so what I came up with was, in the social messaging and within the blog post, it says things like, where will you go? Will you go to Paris and go to SMX, blah, blah, blah? Will you go to London and blah, 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 blah? So the images that are through it, I think are pretty beautiful. And they're like pictures of these places that came from Flickr that I don't think I bought any of the images, but they're really beautiful pictures. And then I made a GIF for social that like filters through them, and like the first one is, where will you go? And it's like London, Dublin, Ireland, New York, blah, blah. So when it's something really boring and the picture is really boring too, you have to think of a way to make it fresh and exciting. Like, I remember recently doing something about, I don't remember what it was, but about something being gold, like a new concept being gold, and so then everything was gold and glitter, and it was like but it had nothing to do with gold, but it gave a... So to answer your question, you just have to find a different way to talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks.
And if you can find a stock image that's not gross, then sure. Okay, we talked about all of this. Promote immediately. Okay, where do I promote? Wait, how are we on time? It's 2:20. I have till 2:30, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. So where do I promote? Everywhere my audience is strategically. If you guys were in like the Snapchat session, like I said this, like if your people aren't on Snapchat, then don't spend all your time trying to figure out Snapchat. So like know where they are and promote it there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you don't know where they are?
Oh, then you need to find out.
Like if you get a client that you've never dealt with, but you know you could do something for them, how do you find it?
Do you use Google Analytics? Okay, so there's a social referral.
But what if it's a new brand, a new company?
Oh, so you like.
Everything like scratch, but it's let's say it's a tangible product, but it could be 14-year-olds, it could be 60-year-olds, it could be anyone between like male, women.
Then maybe I would look at my competitors, and I don't know if the camera heard this. What do you do if you're a brand new product or brand and you don't even know like, where are people going to come to me from? I would suggest you go to your competitors that are doing it right and figure out where they're getting like do an audit. Like they have this many followers here, this many here, this much engagement. Like use tools and figure out where they're coming from. If we know that like it's a fashion thing, like maybe I'm doing promoted pins, maybe I'm on Polybore, which is like a super up and coming thing for fashion, and all of the orders on Polybore are way higher purchase value than like any other social network. So it's women with more money. So that's a thing to note. Yes. Yes. Is that good? Okay, cool. So tools for promotion. There are like a bunch of these. There's a lot of different social listening tools that also have the functionality to like promote your posts. CoSchedule is what I prefer to use. It is a WordPress plugin. It lets me go straight from whatever I'm working on in WordPress and like just do all the social there. And I would not have the same message in all the places, but it's nice to just be in one tab, you know? Buffer, Josh mentioned that earlier today. That's another great option. Hootsuite, Sprout Social, these are some of the most popular. I don't think it really hurts you to use one over the other. You should just do it. So as soon as something goes out, if it's like an article specifically, make sure it's gone out socially everywhere. And then also, you want to schedule promotion. This is just what I do with our blog articles. Twice a day at first, once a day for the rest of the week, a couple of times a week over the next month. Then I'm going to evaluate, I'm going to go in Google Analytics, I'm going to look at the content drill down report, and I'm going to see what's working. And if it's something that's become like a staple and like a great piece of content, I'm going to want to make sure I keep promoting that. Not all content is created equally. Sometimes it's something that's promoting something you've done. Sometimes it's a really in-depth guide. Sometimes it's something that's really timely. If it's really timely and it only mattered in April, you're not going to promote it in December. So like, just not everything is the same, and you want to, and also, when you monitor what's working well, then you know what your audience wants and what you should create more of. So, questions at this point? Okay, I think it's okay that we're almost to 2:30 because we've been doing like the Q&A with the presentation, so like we're really like, we're good on time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went over all these things, and then I wanted to give you an example of like how this can function, and we talked a little bit about this already. One thing I didn't mention that I think is important, let's say I've figured out there's a blog post that has a lot of traffic and it's great. I want to make sure I'm updating it, that I'm keeping it fresh. How can I make it better? How can I keep people longer on the page? That's something we regularly do. Because sometimes you should be spending as much time evergreening something and like making an old thing better as just making something new. And then you can even change the date. If it substantially changes, like we have something called the SEO checklist. It's now the freshly updated SEO checklist, I think is what it's called. But that was like one of our top traffic drivers. And as we talked about already, SEO is constantly changing. So every few months or so, I'm going to need to go in there and now I'm going to need to talk about accelerated mobile pages, or I'm going to need to talk about responsive design, or whatever the latest thing is. I'm going to need to include it. So then I can change the publication date. It's a new piece of content. So that's something to think about. So here's just one of my favorite examples of a successful piece of content. Okay, so long ago, I think it was 2013 or 14, I don't know. I realized, okay, here's how it actually happened. We put out an SEO newsletter every month. One of the pieces of the newsletter is upcoming conferences and events. I would curate these every month, and every month it was super frustrating because there was no single place online where I could just get a list of all the conferences that were happening. I would have to go to each individual conference, and I'd have to remember all of the conferences that were out there. So obviously whatever job I was doing was like not that great because I'm just one person with one brain and so much time. So after months of this being frustrating, I was like, no, I'm just gonna make a calendar and I'm gonna put everything down and it's gonna help me do the newsletter every week. So that was like year one. So I saw a content hole. Okay, so keyword research. At the time, internet marketing conference calendar searches for it exceeded digital marketing conference calendar. So the title was the Internet Marketing Conference Calendar, right? And at this point, it didn't have that cool GIF. I don't know what picture it had, like, and it was like, hey, if you want to know, I've made a Google Calendar, you can overlay it onto your own calendar. These are the events that are included. So, okay, I don't know how I'm supposed to tell this story according to my slide, but so what happened was that was the first year. And so it was great, and then what do you know, we're getting like all this traffic from this thing. Well, then in year two, I wanted to republish it with a new date, because like you don't want the 2015 conference calendar when you're in 2016, and the calendar was being updated all the time. This time I added every single event to like on the thing. I put the GIFs in. At this point, the way people were talking about digital marketing had changed, so digital marketing was more searched for than internet marketing. So I changed everywhere it said internet marketing to digital marketing. It still ranks number one, like, for this, and it gets better every year. Like, I find a new way to make it better. So this is like an example of how you find what's missing in your industry. You keep making it better, you do your keyword research, and everything is just great.
I don't know what that